Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, Books Because of Hers. My name's Leslie, and I'm so very fortunate, and so is Tariel right behind me, that I read DL Tillery's Caliostro up until the last minute, and this book is so incredible. I was on the edge of my seat. There's a lot of there's a lot of tension, so us readers are edging as well. And just to tell you a little bit about the author is a self-proclaimed mistress of horror. They are a multi-genre author with a passion for weaving tales that blend elements of horror, dark fantasy, and romance. And knowing their slogan, I am married to all the genres, but I am the mistress of horror. And they specialize in crafting stories from that captivate, unsettle, and linger in the reader's mind long after the final page. And after reading this book, and the short stories as well. That is so true. So please welcome our lovely guest. Hey, DL. Oh, you have to unmute yourself.
I am muted. Hi, everyone. Author DL Tillery here, Mistress of Horror. I'm excited to be here. Very excited to talk about Caliostro and all of the things. You can find me over on my channel under Author DL Tillery, really easy. And then you'll see the splatter of the Mistress of Horror there. And if you check out my website, you'll see the Mistress of Horror, which is my brand. It tends to be the case that I'm married to all the genres, but everything that I write tends to have a little bit of dark taste. So that's why I'm always the Mistress of Horror. So yeah, I'm happy to be here. So what are we jumping off with? Are we talking about Caliostro right away? What are we doing?
With Caliostro, I'm gonna leave the short stories for later. I wanted to jump in right away, and then I'm trying to hold myself back. Could you go ahead and just give a little bit of a synopsis of Caliostro?
Yeah, let me actually just pull the one and read it directly, because I'll go off on a tangent if I do it just off the top of my head.
Tangents are welcome here.
Yeah, I imagine so. As readers, in the remote Mojave Mountains, Caliostro solitary Lyvirten, which is what he is, bound to the shadows, spent centuries observing the mortal world, seeking solace in the sounds of the night. But his quiet existence is disrupted when a mysterious woman appears, drowning in his lake. Drawn to her by an inexplainable connection, he saves her, igniting a chain of events that threaten a fragile balance of his world. The woman, with no memory of her identity, becomes an enigma. Her presence challenges the boundaries of the veil, the invisible barrier separating realms, and her very existence raises questions Cagliostro cannot ignore. As he shelters her within his secluded manor, their uneasy bond is tested by her relentless search for answers and secrets Cagliostro has long kept buried. In this tale of dark fantasy and mystery, Cagliostro tale Lyvirten weaves a haunting narrative of discovery, danger, and complexity of trust in a world where nothing is as it seems. Yes, it is a lot of mystery and layers going on in Caliostro. So yeah, get ready.
You are just when I read the short stories, which I'll keep for last.
Yeah,
I could definitely tell just from you saying that last bit of nothing is really like what it seems.
mm-hmm.
You have that in spades, and I loved it.
Yeah, I tend to like crawl at people. Like when people ask me about my horror, and they're like, "What kind of horror do you write?" And I'm like, I kind of like to sneak up on you and then get you. And then even things like dark fantasy, which is just layered in horror, hence the dark part of it. It's just, I do like to just lure you into a false sense of security.
Loving this. And the joy that you feel when telling me
I
that.
do. It's so bad. My friend Aphrodite, who's an author, and she does arc read for me sometimes, with alpha read for myself, even ever sees anything else. She is so funny, and she read The Room Within, and she had nightmares, and I was so happy because that was directly horror. Now she is in love with Cagliostro, and she's so funny. She loves Duncan. She has a crush on him, one of the side characters, and she's like, that's my man. I'm like, oh my goodness. Okay. He's your man. You're right.
He handles business. That's why.
Yes. Oh my.
So where does your love of books and writing come from?
Ooh, it's a old love of mine. I think, when did I fall in love with books? I don't know. It's been in such a long, long time. I started writing when I was a little girl. And I think that came from the fact that, like, my mom used to catch the subway to her job, and she worked at John Hopkins Hospital when I was growing up. And when she would get them, so I would write her notes in her books, that her religious books that she would read on her way to her job, and I would leave her notes. And I was a very little girl at the time. I think I was like 4, 5, a little bit before that. I was writing her notes, and sometimes she was like, some of the letters was mixed around, but you knew what you were saying. So that was when I first started writing stuff like that, like notes and things. And then I think the time I was, I don't know, 12, I was writing like stories and poetry, because before that I wanted to be a meteorologist.
Mm.
And my mom was going to get me like under someone's wing because of where she worked and things. So they said, well, if she's still interested at 12, then we'll start something so she could be in it early. And but the person was like, I don't think she will be. And they were right. I completely switched all the way over to wanting to be a writer at that time. So I kind of knew I wanted to be a writer when I was like 12. So,
Wow.
and then books, always books. I guess it was always like, since I was a little girl, always books. So I had a fascination with telling stories early on. So I would just make little stories up and stuff. So it kind of like love of books and storytelling kind of happened around the same time. So it's been a long time.
Yeah, yeah. I could tell by reading Caliostro just how much of a love of books you have, which I'll be getting into. But hello, Lynn. Thank you for being here. My late night buddy.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so maybe I'll work this backwards. All right. I love your world building. Could you talk about the process of world building and how much ends up on the pages versus the cutting room floor?
Okay. I think my world building I think it kind of naturally happens. I Now when I write my books, I tend to have I call it like the ship blueprint before I set sail. So I kind of come up with like an idea. Now my stories are very character structured. So the characters are kind of created even before the world is developed. So the
Mhm.
funny thing about Caliostro is that it started off as a vampire tale back in the day when I first started writing it, which is crazy since he's not really a vampire per se, but there's vampires in the story. So the structure of it, my world building comes based around. You'll probably hear a crazy 8-year-old in the background. She loves having fun.
That's good. I have two crazy cats, so
Yeah, right. And so the world building tends to grow from around the characters. So that's kind of like how my world building tends to start. And then when I structure the background of the characters and what they want, um, that's pretty much how my world starts growing around that character. So this whole world that I created stemmed from just starting with that one character. And it grew into something that I had no idea it was going to originally. And then, because my old style of writing used to be just, I was a plantser back in the day when it started. And I shifted to a plotter where I do my outlines and everything before I ever write anything. But Caliostro had a lot of reconstruction going on. And it turned into this big thing that it wasn't when I first started. So once the character was created, then I started seeing this whole world. And then from that I started making like this placement of what is this going to become? Where is this going to go? So I know the very ending of my stories, even if it's a series, before I ever write the first page. So that's kind of how I build my worlds like that.
that is a signal of a great storyteller because sometimes people start writing and they don't know where it's going, and
Yeah.
that just sets us up to be, as a reader, potentially disappointed and
It's
they
a
don't know where they're
lot
going.
harder, I think, to write a series, well, to me, because everybody
Mhm.
writes differently, but to write a series and not know what the ending is going to be, only because you, of course, as if you take years and years to write stories, which I did take years to write Caliostro because of life, but you change as a writer. As the years go on, you'll grow because you grow as a person. So you grow as a writer. So your perspectives and thoughts of how things should be or could be changes, which will then affect how your story. The longer you take, the the more your story will change, and then that may mess up the beginning. So you really do have to be on your P's and Q's, in my opinion, when you're writing a series, because it could cause issues if you don't. So,
Yeah, and plot holes abound. Yeah.
indeed, very possible.
Um, you write action sequences in such a vivid way. How do you construct these action sequences and what are you inspired by?
Actually, my action sequences they're very inspired just by, like, I guess my love of, like, action films, and also I grew up like watching anime, and being into manga, so I love graphic novels, and comic books. I was a big comic book girl back in the day.
Mhm.
I still love like comic books. I still have some of my old ones. So a lot of that stuff is very actiony. Plus, I come from martial arts background, so I started martial arts training when I was like 4, and I've done that like my whole life. So like martial arts in itself, and thinking about the concept of how a battle could work is not the easiest thing, especially to put it on paper. But also, I think when I'm structuring like those type of scenes, I'm more or less thinking like the reader, you don't want them to be bored in that instance. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So I think a lot of times writers can make a mistake to get too drawn into just telling the story while they're in that type of scene. And you have to kind of remember that fights and stuff like this happen pretty quickly. So you do have to try to keep the concept of what would occur, and so in the speed of a battle. So that I kind of keep that in mind when I'm trying to structure those type of scenes. Though it could be a little difficult. I'm not gonna lie. It definitely could be a little difficult.
Yeah, well, without knowing any of that, your experience comes across. I loved it. I've read books where, even if it's in the horror genre, they might just say, "Oh, these characters fought," and that's it. So it's a
Yeah.
summary of a thing happened rather than letting us experience it.
Right. You kind of need to want to see it, because if it was, I kind of think about it on the instance if they could watch it. You know what I mean? So I have to at least describe it to a point that so I can make them see it. I know everyone who has read Caliostro so far and who have left reviews and things have said that it is very visual. They can almost like the in the world why it's happening, which I'm very happy that that's the case, because of course as a writer we know our strengths and our weaknesses if we admit them, but we also don't know how other people are going to perceive what we put on the page, because they could perceive it differently than we imagine. You're like, you think you're like Superman, but then you're really just not at all. But you think you're great at something, but you might not be. You just don't know until like readers kind of really get in there, and then you hear people say it, which makes you smile because you're like, that's what I meant to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's graphic, horrific, vivid. I loved it. It was very intense.
I'm
This
glad.
is
I wanted people to be
wonderful.
able to see the world. And when you're writing, ooh, when you're writing a series, I think to me it's one of the most difficult type of things, because you do have to, like, when you write a series, you have to go back and read your book. Like when you when you go on to the next book, because let's say it's been a year or more that you're writing another book to the series, the next one in the series, but you have to go back and read it, because as the mind goes, you may not recall every single detail. And detail is one of the most key points when you're writing a series, because readers will notice whose hair wasn't what color, what happened. So you can't be messing up. Also, it's good to keep like, bullet points, and also keep like a whole thing. Like you gotta have a whole system down. Everybody's system's different. I saw one writer, Richard, who's in like our I call the British guys, writing sphere, and listen, my boy got a system that I would never ever. Like that's an amazing system. Like I don't even know what that was that he showed us. Like I was like, this is like advanced spreadsheet graph, something going on. This is just like his outline on top of the fact because he's writing a series, and I'm like, my good sir, I could never like. But he's also an epic writer. I'm not that writer. I'm not an epic writer. My books are going to be very normal size. They be with writers, we be doing our writing thing, and they're like, yeah, I'm about a quarter of the way done, and I'm about 120,000 words, and I'm like, excuse me, who? I'm like, I applaud you, sir, but no, won't be me. I'm sorry. I'd be like telling my editor, could you, maybe not cut so many words, please. But, I'm that writer.
Lynn asked, it's interesting to hear about DL's martial arts background. Could you ask more specific on that? Was it specific styles? Did you take lessons? What about Bruce Lee as an influence?
Yes. Actually, my teacher was my older brother who had took martial arts himself. So he did a lot of mixed martial arts. We're not talking about MMA based, but like different styles of martial arts that he ended up teaching me all of them. So I learned like sumo wrestling. I learned Tai Chi. I learned Thai boxing. I learned jiu-jitsu. It's so many. I learned so many because I've been learning since I was 4. And he had some strenuous training. Like I had like poses I had to do for an hour. Like it was for real training. Like you thought I would have been like in the next Karate Kid or some kind of time training. And I was doing this all the way up until my like late teens training. I never went to officially get black belts or anything like that. In the martial arts mind, we don't really care about that kind of thing unless we're trying to go like professional and all that jazz. Belts don't teach you discipline. I was never the type to worry about the color of a belt or anything like that. So though I have so many different styles, and my main style is my older brother, who is my teacher. His style is called Wyvern style. So he took all the different things that he learned and made his own style. So he had like his own type of kicks that he created that I learned. Those were really hard kicks. But it was mostly too for the discipline, which helps discipline the mind. Because martial arts, you don't really plan on using it, but of course it is great for self-defense. But it's also was definitely a lot about the focus of the mind, which also I think helped me be a very patient person, So
yeah. Lynn said,
and yes, Bruce Lee influences. I love Bruce Lee, so
yeah. So kind of like the idea of Bruce Lee, Jeet Kune Do, whatever works. Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so I had a question. Like on page 63, there's a character that mentions like different creatures, and they happen to say low-class vampires. I didn't know if that had to do with like the dynamics. So could you expand on the class ranking of the supernatural creatures?
Yes. As far as the vampires go in Caliostro's world, I mean, in most cases of vampires, there's always low-class vampires. A low-class vampire would be one that would be, I guess, considered weaker, or and it's in some vampire stories, for example, they have it where newborn vampires are extremely strong because they've just been turned. That is one aspect of some type of vampire lore and some vampire stories. In mine, particularly, a lower class vampire would be one that hasn't lived that long, let's say, don't have as much strength and powers because they haven't been a vampire long. So mine kind of works the opposite of like, oh, I'm not like the strongest vampire and I just became one, so I'm like a newborn. Because like Twilight did that. She did it with like, oh, newborn vampires were super dangerous because they've just been turned. Mine would be more leaning towards older lore, where it depends on who your master was. if you had specific strengths because of the blood that was given. So the kind of like the classic setting of a vampire. So low class meaning not as strong as the higher class or the ones that's been alive for hundreds and thousands of years or something like that.
So there's like a lineage.
Yeah. Actually, if you read Obsessed, which is in the back of Caliostro, it delves a little bit further into the vampire aspects of the Caliostro world, because Delata is a vampire, is the main one of the main vampires in the story, and it has the vampire consul that is in the Caliostro world is introduced in that side story. So that will give you a little bit more insight into them. They do have a consul who kind of like regulates their involvement in what they do in the mortal world. So they want to make sure that they aren't still the old vampire classic, but they aren't exposed, so that way they can still eat when they want to, you know. So.
I love it. I love it. I love all these details. All right. I have a question about a specific page.
Yep.
So you wrote, Caliostro wore all black head to toe. His hood covered his long hair, pulled back by a leather cord. And then in, which one was it? Fractals. The character, like right at the beginning, is shopping and describing some clothes that like stood out to her. Could you talk a little bit about, I guess you could say, like fashion and the descriptions and how that makes an impression on the world that you're building?
I think that when it comes down to like what the characters are wearing, I tend to do like a detail of that in order to make sure I pull the reader in, so they can kind of visualize just what the characters look like. Now, my own personal style obviously is within these pages, and the fashion. If you notice with Caliostro, with the cover in itself, I'm leaning more CEO style, and which Caliostro, as people read, will find out he is also like a rich mogul type too, because someone who being or wise would live so long in the middle world would obviously have a lot, because you've been around so long. Like you have to really not probably be that bright to be around for like hundreds and thousands of years and you have nothing, Angel. But that always got me on Angel. Like Angel, like only he had like the hotel, but they kind of still kept Angel like dressed kind of down to earth, kind of, even though he wore the leather coat or whatever. But I thought Angel was kind of like, they never played up that Angel would have had to have some kind of money. My boy been alive for a long time. Like, what is happening here? They always have him kind of like run down and jumps and stuff. I'm like, okay, I get what you're trying to persona, but my boy would be rolling. Like he could have literally kept a vase from like back when he was in the Renaissance and stuff, and then kept it and then just sold it on the roadhouse or something and would have been rich. Like I'm like, that's not believable when we talking about vampires or anything that lives that long. Like they would have some kind of money, even if they're more of a down to earth type person, because there are rich people who live like very calm, not flashy lives. But so Caliostro is like that. So he kind of always is in a suit. And that's because I really have a thing for CEO romances. Like I have a thing for CEO romances because I watch like a lot of Chinese dramas and Korean dramas. So I've always liked that. Like I like that dominant type of personality, as you couldn't tell from the males that I write. But that's just like what I like. So of course, then I like the suit look. I always did like men in suits. Like I just always had a thing for that. So I figured I'm just going to integrate that into that because duh, you know. And then as far as like the other fashions, I actually used to be a seamstress. I actually had a costume design business at one point. Especially back in my like professional dance career, because I was a professional Middle Eastern dancer for the longest time, like most of my life. So when I did costume design, I did a lot of stuff. I've done comic book characters. I've done that. So a lot of that kind of integrates into me. I can be a little flashy with my fashion myself because I'm a goth chick, so I wear a lot of like black leather and I wear a lot of like high end fashion stuff. Like so much so I used to get followed around stores when I used to go out shopping because people thought that so you must be a movie star, or you must be a singer or something like that. And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm just trying to get some groceries. So that's kind of why my fashion is that's where it's coming from in my stories, because of my own personal like design capabilities of clothing, and I know what I like, so I kind of integrate that into my writing. It's like a natural thing, I think.
Yeah, it really comes across because in fractals, like on the first page, I didn't realize that you're actually really hinting at what's going on with the character.
Yeah.
Till I started like thinking about it because you wrote, is it Delure? Is that how I say it?
Delori.
Tillery
Yep.
moved onto the boot section and eyed a pair of tan fur and leather calf legs boots. And it was like such a tip off, and I loved it. And it's really those details
Yeah.
um that are just they're everything to the story, and the way that you write, how you happen to mention that you, at times you're like more of a character driven
Yeah.
focus.
Yeah.
Those are the stories that I like. And whether it's science fiction or fantasy or just like certain genres, not all writers can build a world and make it feel natural as I'm reading. Sometimes,
True.
like my one like nitpicky thing is because I'm a really easygoing reader is I don't like info dumps.
Yes, those can be an issue.
Yeah, but yours doesn't have that. It just flowed so well, and I was like,
I try
oh,
to avoid them because you kind of think about it. You learn a lot of lessons as a writer. They tell you like, don't info dump, don't do this, don't do that. But then you like also, of course, people need the information. So you do try to, if you think about it, logically, you try to spread it out. In Caliostro, particularly, with the telling Allison like his past, I tried to do it in a way that wasn't boring for the reader, but also try to keep them engaged by not staying 100% locked into while the past is being told, but letting Cagliostro Allison engage while he's still telling her about his past. Some people may consider it an info dump, but it's not. I've tried to make it where it's a more flashback style, but then also still keeping it present as well as going to the past. So it can be tricky, but I think that may be one of the better ways, so that way you don't like throw everything at people at the same time.
yeah, no, none of it felt like an info dump. You did a great
That's good.
job at
I'm
making me
glad
feel
to
like
hear that.
immersed. Yeah, no,
Right.
it just felt like a ride. It really felt like a ride.
That's
Um,
great.
something else that in terms of details and that really sucked me into to other books is I'm a foodie girl all through and through.
Right out there, Bryce, about some food in there. Then they had some meals, you know.
They had some, yeah, which I was all there for. Like for instance, on page 55, they're eating duck with some orange sauce, and page 162, they're having like an almond pumpkin soup. What role does food play in the stories for you?
I think in the instance that I think I put those type of details actually to give, even though this is a supernatural world of things that could or maybe never could possibly happen to us.
Mhm.
So, and I love, that's what I love writing, is something that is possibly unimaginable or something that could never happen or beings that you could never think of. But I also still like to put those little details that we as humans can relate to. And of course,
Mhm.
we all like food. So I kind of integrated like different aspects of what maybe something that would catch someone's eye or something that would sound good. I am blessed to have someone who cooks for me. I do not cook myself really, but my older brother is like a chef and he cooks all kinds of amazing dishes. Um, and that kind of keeps me on my toes of like these amazing type of foods that are, there's so many different type of things you can make. And I'm like thinking like, okay, Allison, the female lead, she is in this situation, but of course, who wouldn't want to eat, you know, something good? So if that could also help relieve stress, if you have something tasty. So I kind of thought it on the instance of having the basic human needs still available in these type of stories, I think can keep you drawn into those type of things. I think it just grabs you, even though you're in a fantastical world that's not even close to yours per se.
Yeah, yeah. I'm here for it. Um, okay, so it's kind of a lengthy question, but I promise I'm leading somewhere, and also just
You're
tell
good.
me if I'm off
No,
completely.
no, no. I like all questions.
Um, so there's a chapter titled "When the Past Was Born" that gave a little bit of like Beauty and the Beast vibes between the food, the dinner, the slight flirtation, the friction. The character has this library, which I was lusting over. And then Catherine is in a sleeping state, which
Yes.
kind of reminded me of like Jane Eyre, across of Jane Eyre because of where she's placed, and also like Sleeping Beauty. What are your influences, or can you speak to that?
I can speak to it. Actually, I mean, I'm a big fairy tale like for sure, 100. I have like multiple questions of the Grimm fairy tales. I've always been to those. Those are more like the realistic ones. So a lot of them are pretty bad, pretty grim. Um, but I grew up being very much into fantasy stories, like fairy tales, particularly when I was a little girl. And to this stuff that I have in this book, particularly every single thing, and I will warn you ahead of time, every single thing that is occurring in this book has a point.
Mhm.
Every single thing in the characters that you come across definitely has a point. You've been warned. You've been warned. Catherine, who's another one of the side characters, um, she doesn't have a lot of interaction in book one because she's obviously comatose, and that's not a secret because it's quite known
Yeah.
early
Yeah.
on, really.
Mhm.
Um, and that there's a point to that. There's a reason why all that occurred, why it had to occur. Uh, but yeah, it wasn't particularly a lead into anything that I have like read far as like or influence from fairy tales. Even though I love fairy tales, and I actually am writing some retellings of the particular fairy tales. I love fairy tales. But yeah, the Catherine particularly is she's something else. She's not done. She's not done. She's just getting started. So
Yeah, that's exciting.
yeah.
Um, I'll just say that that's really really exciting. Um, Kind of like to expand on fairy tales. What are some of your favorites that really stuck out to you or made an impression on you?
Ooh, I think I watched so many when I was a little girl. I really did enjoy, and I all had I like enjoyed them all for different reasons. I think my least favorite one probably was Snow White when I was little because I was a big Disney girl when I was
Mhm.
little. Um, and I loved The Little Mermaid. That was one of my favorite ones. I wasn't like big into Sleeping Beauty. Only thing I liked about Sleeping Beauty was the singing sequence when she was in the woods. Because I was
Mhm.
big into singing, and opera is my type of music that I sing, that my voice is made for. So I would sing the one song where like I know you, and
Mhm.
that was like my favorite part. I did like Rapunzel. That one wasn't bad, but my favorite probably would be Beauty and the Beast, and the Little Mermaid. I think those two were my favorite. I think my dad was so tired of the Little Mermaid because I had him watch it. He had to put it in every single day, and I know all the songs. I'm a big song buff. Like if I hear a song one or two times, I've memorized it.
Mhm.
So I know all the songs to all the Disney princess movies. And Little Mermaid had so many good ones in it. Even Sebastian songs. I know all of those. So definitely would be Beauty and the Beast and Little Mermaid. And I did like Cinderella because I mean, who doesn't like a good Cinderella story? Clearly, but I think I really like Beauty and the Beast because of the dynamic of I think the deepness of the characters, the problems that the characters had, those issues, like, the deeper darkness of the beast, and then him being a beast, and then her falling in love with him really while he was the beast, which I thought was good, because it was like, that's like true love, because you don't really care about this superficial what they see. And I like some attractive guys, okay, but the thought of that she could love someone that was completely different than her, and also he did have some issues because he was dealing with a lot of stuff, but like, I think that's why Beauty and the Beast is really, really stuck out to me. And I did like the live action version that they made. I thought it was actually almost tit for tat for the animated one. A lot of people don't like the live actions, but when it's like this, I like it when it's scene for scene. Some people like, they
Yeah.
need to do something different. I'm like, not really. I just want to see it.
I loved
like,
it. Yeah.
And Cinderella wasn't bad either, actually. The dress was crazy. That dress was phenomenal. I'm like, the designer, I'm over here being a seamstress. I'm like, that designer was bomb. That was crazy.
Yeah, you get to notice those details.
Woo.
Yeah, and it's also very nostalgic. That's what I really liked about Beauty and
Yes,
the Beast. So
it is.
I was all about that. It's so funny. Lily Eve is here. Thank you for being
Hi.
here. We love the Little Mermaid. Yeah.
Yes.
Would you ever consider writing like a siren type like horror?
It's funny that you say that. I actually have a tail, no pun intended, on the back end, on back burner. Is actually, I purchased a cover from this artist that she does some pre-mades, and then she does custom work, and she had this, and when she sells a pre-made, it's sold and that's it. And she had this pre-made on her website, and I saw this pre-made, and I was like, I must buy this. I must write a story for this book, for this cover. It's ridiculous. And it's like, to me, the more purest version of a mermaid, because we all know, in all actuality, no matter what Disney wrote, the mermaids are not to be trifled with. Okay, they're not all cutesy and such, like, Ariel was. So I do write the mermaids more in their natural state, obviously, because being a Mistress of Horror, why would I not take advantage of that? So I've actually written, before this one I'm talking about now, I've written another one that actually was a short horror, romance horror, of a mermaid who fell in love with a human. That one I've written, that's a short story. And then the one that I'm really want to write, and I've outlined it. It's like a 3-part in one book, and it's about 3 mermaid sisters. And they each fall in love with their mate. So it's kind of like a dark romance horror for this particular, but all 3 stories are in the book. But then it has 4 stories in the book, but each individual sister have their own romance with their mates. And then the 4th story in the book is all 3 of them interacting together with their significant others. So that one, yes. And it's horror aspects, because mermaids, again, they're more siren based. They lure you and things like that, and it's more darker layers to the mermaid than obviously Disney's version. So yes, I am writing those things.
I'm ready. I'm already ready. Tell me how to pre-order.
Right.
Let me see. I'm trying to see if I should move on, because it's Caliostro had me gripped. Yeah. Actually, I'll ask you this, because at some point, Caliostro's like gone for a week, and then when he come back, they finally kiss. And right. So this book just had me. I don't know how you do it, so I'm just gonna ask, and I wish it was more specific. Mm-hmm. But how do you write that tension, that yearning between the characters? Because every time they kissed, I was like, finally, this is what I wanted.
Right? Oh my goodness. And I've heard that quite a few times, like, come on, or like, what's gonna happen? Like, so they were people were very on edge. And that was mostly for my beta readers. They were losing it. Um, I would like to think that I'm going to give homage to K dramas. I'm going to give it to K dramas 100 because I started watching Korean dramas. I think it was probably right before the pandemic happened. I think it was like 2019. I want to say around late 2018 to early 2019 when I first started looking at K dramas. I grew up on Japanese culture, so I grew up on all like Japanese dramas and Japanese movies, and anime and manga, things like that. So I grew up on that stuff. And Korean stuff was like very little bit. It wasn't a thing really in the 90s. It was all Japanese stuff. You know what I mean? So now, with the overhaul of K-pop and K-dramas becoming a thing, and I think, in my opinion, from growing up with like all the different aspects of the Japanese culture and entertainment, that I think Korea knew how to do it. Like they knew how to grab the Western world and then make them be interested in what they had to offer more than Japan was able to do. Though Japan had, I think, more ties to us because of obviously past things, but Korea did it. They knew what was up, so to speak. So it kind of just became this whole thing, which means we got more stuff here, and there was more apps and things that you could watch more stuff directly when it comes out. So that's all I watch. Like that's all I watch. I don't watch any Western TV whatsoever. Like no one can ask me about what the new show is, or they'll be like talking about some new show or something. I have no idea what you talk about. Like I have no idea whatsoever. I literally don't. I have the Viki app, it's called, and I have QI. I have that, and that's mostly Chinese dramas, but they do have like Korean dramas on there too. Viki has like all like Japan, Thailand, China, and Korea. They got all Asian cinema on there. So that's all I've watched since 2018. And there's no going back for me as far as I'm concerned. That's all I'm now. That's it. Like that's it. So I would say I would, at least for that particular thing, 100 would say that Korean dramas, they know what's up. Okay. When you talk about romance tension, they the masters. They know what's going on. Chinese dramas got it too. Theirs is a little bit different. They aren't as they are progressive in some ways and not as progressive in other ways that Korea is, if you know what I mean. Chinese dramas can be the males can be over domineering at points, but if you're looking for that, then it's fine. But like Korean dramas, they don't do it. They still have that, believe that, but they do it still a little bit differently than, let's say, the Chinese dramas can go a little further than Korean dramas would go. They are a little bit more progressive in some of the senses. Though in Asian cinema in general, their cultures are different than our Western culture. So if you aren't used to Asian culture in that way, then it may not be for you. So I think that as far as the tension goes, they know what's up. They know how to build some tension. They know how to make you wait for that kiss. Even if the kiss comes early, because some people have said, some of my beta readers, like a couple of the beta readers I had, said that they were like, one person said that they thought that the first kiss came too early. And I was like, I told them like this: if you think the kiss came too early, that's because of your own personal experiences and how you deal with relationships. That really has nothing to do with Allison and Caliostro. But I told them also, because everyone's different about when they feel that pull to be, it's that point where they want to kiss a person. You know what I mean? So I think that, you should read the whole series before you would make that judgment, because there's, like I said, there's Easter eggs. There are reasons for everything I do in my stories.
Yeah.
Even something as simple as the characters being drawn to each other, like unexplainable, like so fast or whatever. Um, to me, I think when someone's in love, and I think when someone's attracted to each other, there is no time.
Mm-hmm.
There is no specific time that, like, man, like I need 3 months. You know what I mean? Like, and some people think that way, but that's fine. But I don't think that that's not blocked to every single person. And that's why if each one of my romances may happen differently.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't say for sure if like the tension between my characters in different stories will always be the same, but I definitely like when people have that kind of attraction to each other,
Yeah,
that
it's
to the
magnetic.
point, yeah, to the point that no one really could get in between that. Even if they have disagreements, even if they fight or whatever, no other person. That's one thing that in Asian cinema I won't agree with, and I find very annoying. Is the third wheel person, like, or they'll bring an X back or something. That's like a staple, and it's like
Yeah.
a thing that they always do. Now, I technically do have a third wheel in
Oh,
Caliostro's
that's true.
story.
I didn't
I
think about it.
do. See? Very K-drama-esque. But it still comes to the point that I don't particularly like when you have the person that can come between the couple.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But because they do that. They do that sometimes. And I'd be like, you just want to beat the person. Like, get out of here. You distracted.
Yeah.
We trying to get to the good stuff. So
And it needs to be more creative, right? If there's gonna be some
yes.
sort of
So it's
impediment.
definitely, like, I think I'm definitely going to give it to me watching. That's all I watch. I mean, it definitely had to affect me. Like, it definitely had to affect me in my romantic storytelling, because I've watched it for so many years, and that's all I watch. Today, I had put set time aside to look at one of my Chinese dramas I'm looking at while I'm waiting for one of my K dramas to finish.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, something, okay, I think I disagree with that the kiss was too early, because I think if any other writer's hands, it would have felt
Yeah,
that way.
yeah,
But your characters say verbally, they communicate, and they're well aware
yeah,
that there's this unexplainable to them at the time
yes,
attraction to each other. So they're
yep,
like, it just feels like they're self-aware in a way that works,
yes,
and
yes.
that there's this chemistry that there's like
Well,
inescapable,
I'm glad
like
it was
magnet.
picked up on.
But I think it was so well done.
Thank you.
Um, Lynn asked, I wonder if DL ever gets inspiration from dreams.
It's funny that you say that. I have in the past. It really depends. The dream would have to really be very vivid, and it would have to be completely not connected to, like, me just dealing with stress stuff or something like that. I did have a dream one time that I definitely was going to turn into a story. It was just very vivid, and it was like a story to me. If it feels like a story to me, then I'm definitely going to probably take that dream and make it into something. It was like, and in your dreams you could be like in the body of the person, or you could just be like an outside viewer. So I kind of felt like it was an in between, like I was in the character, and then I was also watching, and it was like in this wooded area, and then it was like this it's almost like a Beauty and Beast setting to me, because it was like this castle and then deep in the woods, and it was this almost like a Phantom of the Opera type of guy, and then it was like a female, and she was like, this. So I was like, okay, well, this has definitely got to be a story, because when it's vivid like that, and you don't feel like it's you, then I think, yeah, definitely this dream could become a story. So yeah, that has happened to me. So I definitely do that sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, I could. That's incredible. Breeze here. I immediately wrote them down. That sounds interesting. Yeah. Thank you. I wanted to return back to descriptions. I totally forgot. Went off on a tangent. Um, you wrote about Caliostro. He ducked into a dark alley that smelled of stale urine, spoiled food, and blood. He had picked up the wolf's scent again at the village entrance. Throughout your book, you also have scents are such a, I guess, an integral part just as much as food and the clothes. Could you talk about your use of scents in the book?
Yes. Um, I think that I learned that over the years of writing, trying to use and recall to use the five senses that we ourselves have. It's easy to forget them. So it's something you do have to remind yourself of early on when you're a writer. The more you use it, the more natural it will become. So I would say now I'm at the point in my writing journey that I use it more naturally. Um, so I think of it, and it's the best way while writing description is to, and also to make it not repetitive, and also to keep the reader engaged, is to utilize those different senses throughout as you go. And I think it also again can connect us to the characters more. Like I give most of my characters their own scent, let's say, which can also be a marketable thing later, where you can make candles as based to the character's particular scent, things like that. We all have particular scents that we carry, but some people aren't as aware or pay attention to these things. But the funny thing about it is when you put it on paper, how much people will then think about, what does that smell like? So it kind of will get you thinking without pulling you from the story. So I do like to utilize the five senses as much as I can. But like, yeah, rewrites sometimes can help with that because we, as writers, we overuse some things. Like, oh my God, I think my editor probably was like, how many times are you going to look? A lot, okay? They like looking at each other. What do you want me to do? I can't control what they do. But
Yeah. You kind of already answered one of my questions, but I kind of wanted to circle back to it a little bit.
yes,
Or maybe I'll phrase it a little bit different to dig into the character of Cagliostro. Um, because as I was reading his character, because he owns hotels, right?
yes,
Well, that's an interesting to make him like such a capitalist.
yeah.
What do you think what happened in his life, or that you could share? Um, that what was like the defining moment or in his life where he started to think about, I'm going to build this kind of financial empire for myself.
I think more or less with Caliostro, he becomes very self-reliant, though he does have like a past with Delata specifically. Um, Hanging around with her, I think, for a couple centuries, and her dramatics and her, she's very fashionable as well.
Mm-hmm.
And being in the mortal world, I think he figured out pretty quickly that money talks in the mortal world. And he wanted to always be in charge of himself. So
Mm-hmm.
even though he tends to reside on the veiled world to get away from like the mortal setting, he likes, I think he also still likes the levels of power
Mm-hmm.
that can put, that's part of his personality. He definitely likes to be able to be in that power structure whenever he wants to, so that way no one has any like control over him in either world setting, because he's very much the domineering CEO type, when he's like in charge. And oh, look at the kitty.
You're interrupting her thought. Rude.
I'm a cat. There's no such thing as rude. I just own everything. But yeah, so I think that with Cagliostro, it's just like a natural thing for him because of the stuff that he went through, having to care for himself, being powerful in both body and powers in general. So it's just I would say power hungry, but as the story goes on, you'll begin to understand more of like that power that he holds in within him, and how much of a struggle is going to be for him for that darkness that's inside to not come out.
Yeah, like very early on, it's apparent his like it comes off the page. His sense or need for control
Yeah.
is very much there, but it's so well balanced because it's also uh there's a rationale there, or like early on and on the surface that he could share of just trying to protect this person that's fallen into his world.
Yep.
I was just I really like that.
Yeah.
Trying to say too much to give it away. Um, so you know what I noticed? Okay, so in fractals,
Yes.
oh, and you're gonna have to correct me on the names again. Oh, there's Delur. I know I'm saying it wrong.
Delory and
Delory
fractals. Yes.
and Drake,
Yes.
and
Right.
in the room within, there's Daniel and Delilah.
Delata. Yep.
Delilah.
Delilah. Yep.
I keep saying that name wrong.
Oh, it's
Delilah.
fine.
You gravitate towards D names.
Very
You are
much
DL
so.
Tillery.
Very much so. I think it's as I let my name picking come out just naturally, kind of what the name comes to me at the time. A lot of times they have D's, and I try to be like, I need to mix it up a little bit. Like that's come into play quite a bit. And I actually had, I think it was, if you read Ladrega, I think it's Ladrega. This was one of the short horror stories. It's still based in the Caliostro world, but it's like my newsletter magnet short story. But it's actually Ladrega is actually in the back of
Mhm.
Caliostro, so you'll get to read that one. Um, and in Ladrega, there is a character that has the same name as a not a prominent character in Caliostro, the main story. They are not the same character.
Hmm.
Someone who read Ladrega and had read Caliostro already, and then read Ladrega because they had the ebook version of Caliostro, which just comes with Ladrega as a bonus. Um, he was like, "Is this that person? Because the name is the same." I said, "Actually, it's not. Even though one of the stories, Ladrega takes place in the mortal world completely, and the other character, even though she does pertain and does show up and does do business and stuff in the mortal world in Cagliostro, um, she is a more magical being. And this person that is in Ladrega, for instance, who has the same first name, is just a mortal.
Mhm.
So the distinction is obviously different. But he's like, oh, so the names was, I was just making sure it wasn't the same person. I said, no, but I also want to keep that to the real. People have same names.
Yeah.
I know writers will try to avoid repeating a name in another book that they wrote. I don't necessarily do that. If the name resonates with the character that I'm creating at the time, I'm going to use the name. Very distinct. That very much can happen with side characters, and that's actually the first time it's happened. But I think it also plays into the world Cagliostro because of all the layeredness that occurs because of these two worlds that are right within each other. So if someone has the same name, then you could be like, wait, is that the mortal version of them? Like they might ask questions, which is to me is good. So
Yeah. Um, so what I liked about fractals and the room within is that in both of these tales, you actually don't say explicitly what the characters are.
yeah.
Chef's kiss, nice touch. Now I know it's different by the time we read Cagliostro,
Yes.
but even then, I feel like you have such an original take and a blend of what the supernatural world is.
Yeah.
A vampire is not just a vampire. Um, one of the characters was reading Alioson was reading a book and kind of like about some hypothesis about the origins and connections of vampires.
Yep.
As I was really incredible. Somewhere in here, there's a question. How did you figure out how you're gonna craft your own unique take on these supernatural characters that have been different iterations over time?
Yeah. I think it came down to like my love for vampires and werewolves. I've always been fascinated with vampires, like I very much so. I have like a whole vampire movie collection, even from like back when I watched Western film. I have a whole bunch of vampire books. I'm very much into vampires, and my favorite is werewolves. Like I have a soft spot for werewolves, if you couldn't tell in Caliostro world.
Mm-hmm.
The Lyvirten being mixed and created because of the Lygrens, which are the werewolves in my story. Um, my take on these particular creatures is my own personal gripes with something I may or may not have liked about different lore, or lore that I maybe questioned about werewolves, about vampires, about angels, about different beings. So I decided, you know what? I'm just going to do what I want and what I think would work for these and what I would like to see them. So that's kind of like what happened, especially with the Lygrens. And I was like, okay, well, I always liked full on actual werewolves.
Mm-hmm.
I like the werewolf that stands on two legs, like a mortal. I would like I like a werewolf that's very very large and imposing. And I know they do the thing in some stories where they'll just use the blanketed umbrella word werewolf and be like, you'll get all the different types of were beasts under the same word. And that's very
Mm-hmm.
confusing because you'll see stuff that's more wolfen, which is usually the larger, or back in the day, used to be the larger wolf that didn't really turn into a were so much that it was extra big as a large looking wolf. Hence, similar to what was done in Twilight, she called them werewolves, but they really are not.
Mm-hmm.
They're more closer to like into what a wolfen would have been, or a Luke Galay or something like that. So many different types of werewolf style creatures, but they have names of their own anyway. Like the wolf man is not the same thing as a werewolf. You would think if you thought werewolf, you would think about the werewolf from the Howling, or American Werewolf from London. That would be more akin to a werewolf because of what it does, how it's built, um, or Dog Soldiers, for instance. That's some of my favorite werewolf movies. And I'm not really, even though American Werewolf from London is a classic, I have a lot of gripes with that one. Like I really do. People get upset whenever I say that. Like I'm like, it really wasn't much to it. It did make sense. Like it did make sense. Like I would go off on a tangent on that one, but I did enjoy the werewolf itself. The werewolf was awesome. Like the way the werewolf looked, very vicious, and he could have stood up at any point, but he was the more beastly kind that was on all fours. So I really just took my own wants of these particular creatures and then ran with it. There is something that some people may not be aware of for Cagliostro, they will become aware. But I always tell people, Cagliostro is quite layered in different ways, and it being under dark fantasy plus romance, it does have a cloak of cosmic horror in it. Just to
Mm-hmm.
keep that in mind. Even the Lycran, the Lyvirten, the angelic fallen, they all are, integrated into this thing that is a bit more bigger than what you even currently know or what it seems. So I want people to try to be prepared as you can.
Yeah, that almost seems like the profession you could have considered in childhood comes out in your work in this way. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um, okay, I think just because I can't help myself, I am gonna go into spoiler
That's right.
as we wrap up. Let me get the banner because I can't help
Spoiler
myself.
alert! Spoiler alert!
Fractals was so freaking good.
Oh, I'm glad you liked it.
That was the first one I read, was that short story. And when I read it, my assumption was that Drake had turned the main character into a werewolf, but I was wrong. Somewhere again, once again, I'm like still digesting
Yes,
it. So like somewhere
yes,
there's a
yes, you were
question.
wrong, as you know now.
That was incredible. I love the way that the twists, the way that you put it in here. It was
Yep.
just so well laid out. How do you structure like how do you structure the twist? Because you know the whole thing.
Mhm.
How do you make that magical twist happen? Because it's not. It's structure really.
Yeah, it's more or less because I want to scare you,
Mhm.
but I want it to be shock. I want it to be a surprise. But I'm kind of telling you the entire time
Mhm.
what's going to happen. I like to leave little Easter eggs. I do leave little clues throughout when I'm writing any story. And that's just like that's my thing. I like to flirt with the darkness more or less. I don't pull you all the way in at first. So it's kind of like a dance that I do with the reader when
Mhm.
I'm writing. So I don't want them to know that they're going to become uncomfortable. I don't want them to know that they're possibly going to be creeped out. I don't want them to know that they're going to start wanting these characters to kiss. Even when I go to my romance aspects, it's all a dance. And so it's
Mhm.
kind of like that's kind of like my thing, far as like even if I take it out of the element of horror or out of the element of the darker side of writing, and I go lean into like the romantic aspects and things like that, it's still the same concept for me to just ease you in, so to speak. Kind of like a relationship, you know what I
Oh my goodness. When I read The Room Within, because you don't explicitly say that one of the characters is a vampire,
Yes. I
I
never tell that in the book.
yes, yeah,
You don't find that out until you read Caliostro, really.
yeah. I didn't know. I had read it and I thought I wasn't sure. Like I was grappling with the idea. I was like, is this a poltergeist? This is a vampire.
Yeah,
I wasn't
yep. That's what
sure.
I wanted you to think. Like it's a haunted house. It's a
You got
haunted
me.
house. I mean, to Daniel, it is a haunted house. Well, at least until the last second. He doesn't really know. He really does believe because well, else would he? What else would he think? I
Yeah.
mean, I wouldn't have been as curious as him, clearly. But some people are curious and it's gotten them in trouble. Um, but so he doesn't know. And there is a sequel to The Room Within. The Room Within is a 6-part series itself.
Mhm.
And it's short stories for this whole entire set is the Within series.
Okay.
Its own branch.
Mhm.
And so as you know, Daniel doesn't make it. He doesn't make it.
Spoiler.
Um, yeah, it's a quick read, and it's supposed to be.
Mhm.
And it was more or less the Room Within was an introduction into the world of Caliostro without going all the way in. So
Mhm.
when I release my books, I'm also doing the same thing I do within my books, if that
Mm.
makes sense.
Mhm. Mhm.
So when I released The Room Within, and The Room Within was first released in a horror anthology with a bunch of other writers,
Mhm.
and we were writing stories that were supposed to be the I think the what's the collection called Local Haunts,
Mhm.
and the story is written for really that particular one was me using Caliostro's world in a setting for haunted houses that would be like where I'm from, Maryland. And I was like, okay, well, I can do this. I can integrate that into that and write a story for this anthology still. And so I decided to use Delata, which was a side character from Caliostro. And I never mentioned she's really a vampire in the short story. It's like, nope, not gonna do that. Because in horror, sometimes you just at the end you're like, what the heck happened here?
Yeah.
Like, what the heck happened? So that's why, particularly on Caliostro, I have at the bottom author of The Room Within. That right there is a connection for people who may have read Room Within and then also be like, well, what's The Room Within? And then check it out. And then they read Caliostro. Let's say they read that first. Then they go check out The Room Within and they be like, that is not Delata in there doing stuff. What's she doing over there? So so she was like the introduction to Caliostro's world because, she's a troublemaker. Like,
definitely. I can't believe Caliostro spent so much time with that character.
Mm-hmm. She's not okay. Like she is. She got some issues. When you read Obsessed, listen, she got she not good. She real bad. She is bad. And when I write my characters bad, I write them bad. Okay. And Obsessed, she do bad stuff. And Obsessed is more vampire horror. So I'm warning you now. So there is more of a sexual style to it because it's all Delata in the setting. She's not playing in a house like she's doing on Room Within. But she's more in her vampire element in Obsessed. So you get to see her. One of her favorite pastimes is taking out whole families. She's very twisted. So I maybe lean more Akasha, something like that from Queen of the Damned. Like she would wipe out entire cities. She didn't care if you were a kid, a woman, a puppy. Akasha would just wipe entire cities of people out. You know what I mean? So you got to think about Delata in that way. She has very much that persona where she's going to do what she wants. She don't care. And her favorite pastime is like hunting entire families. She enjoys it. And which you'll get to see in Obsessed, unfortunately. And unfortunately for Daniel, in the second book I already mentioned in a few of my streams, it's called Trapped Within. Daniel's still the main character for that one.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Another twist. For me.
So this time, there is some haunting aspect happening for Daniel.
Yeah. That's incredible. I'm telling you, you're writing. You already have me just in this conversation. I'm like getting closer and closer.
She's like, what's going on? What now? Yeah, I would like to say that Caliostro is my magnus opus. There's so many legs. Caliostro's world is a spider. There's so many legs to it. Now I know you're near the end of Caliostro. There is a Easter egg that you probably already read, I'm sure. Do you remember the scene at the hotel?
Yes.
With the old woman.
Yes.
That is an Easter egg.
Okay.
She is a very prominent character for other books. She actually has her own series that I have already started writing, and it's the Nana series. So she's very, very creepy. She is.
Sounds creepy.
She's yeah, that moment in the book when he sees her for that little bit of time, and that smile that she does, and everything gets very quiet, like the darkness that she. And as he felt it, like he's like, what the, So she has her own series. She's a big deal. I'm just going to throw that egg out there. And her story, the Nana series, she is like a overseer type. She just shows herself that way because she just likes you to think that she is feeble and weak. So she shows mortals and whoever else her persona that way just because she can. So she's a very dark character. And her series is, I think it's 7 parts? Maybe 4 or 7 parts because I kind of extended it. And the first one of that, when I actually had read the opening of the first story for one of, I think, Barrett Laurie's channel, when they were doing like first page, or they were doing like this, you come on and you would read like your opening of the story, and everybody was like this
Oh
at the
God.
screen, and I was they were at the screen, and it was so funny because it opens very high packed action in the story. So I'm looking forward to when that releases. But it's so many branches to Caliostro's world. It's a lot going on. That's all.
I
There's a
mean,
lot happening.
yeah. I got lost in thought. I was going to say something else and I totally forgot. Oh, okay. Let me go back. I couldn't help myself. I'm indulging.
Yes.
Lily Eve, nice. Oh, yeah. Hey, Kiana. I was
Hi.
just talking about your channel earlier, and that you indulged and bought like a bunch of
A
books.
lot of
Bad
books. I love
books.
that. It's always
And
fun. Book hauls.
thank you for writing a male character that has a large library. You know
Oh,
what
he
we
must.
want.
He
You know what we
must.
want.
Right?
To wrap it up, I just want to ask. You brought up Akasha. Thank goodness. That's all I need. Lynn Madworld knows how unhinged I am. How do you are you watching the series? Are you watching the AMC Interview with the Vampire?
I haven't watched it yet. Yeah, actually. But I will, just because like I'm a big Anne Rice fan. I have a lot of Anne Rice works. I have the last book she wrote and released. I have 2 copies of that one actually. Um and yeah, so I'll have to watch it. No, I don't watch Western stuff anymore, but I'll have to watch it just because it's vampires, one, and also because it's Anne Rice. And I have such respect for Anne Rice. So definitely going to watch it though, because I have everything Lestat. I have all the books, so I'm gonna have to.
It's so good because I kind of wanted to know who you wanted to be fan casted for Akasha because she's
Ooh.
coming up in season 3.
Oh, is she? Oh
Oh
boy.
yeah, they're going
Oh
there.
boy. Oh my goodness. I don't know. Jeez, I would have to really think about that because Aaliyah was just perfect.
She was
Like
incredible.
I don't. She was just like, it's so sad that we lost her that early. She was just like a natural, ridiculously good, and she was so tiny. Oh my goodness. Um, but like I don't know who could. I would have to really think about that one.
Yeah, she's definitely. I could tell you the first person that I did not know that passed away that I had a I was like distraught. I was at the theater with all the other
Right.
the music heads.
I
We were packed
know.
theater. The movie was terrible, but we loved her. We were
Yeah, I
just
know a
like
lot of people. A
commiserating.
lot of people dislike Queen of the Dam. I liked Queen of the Dam, and a lot of people will get mad.
That's fine. That's fine.
People get mad. I am not a fan of Interview with the Vampire, the movie.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm not, only because I think the casting was terrible. And I think they were just really, in my opinion, trying to pick the hottest men of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they were, but they didn't pick the hot men that also could play the roles that we all have read in the book. Not that they did a terrible job. I think most of them did okay. Tom Cruise was a disaster to
Tom Cruise is
me.
Tom Cruise.
I'm gonna say to me because some people think otherwise, and I preferred Stuart Townsend's version of Lestat. For me,
Oh
I
wow.
personally, I did. I know. And people were like, "What? How?" I think his look worked better. Tom Cruise's
Okay.
didn't at all for me. Also, I like Stuart Townsend's demeanor for Lestat because of the rock star aspects of Lestat. And Tom Cruise could never pull that off. It'd be too funny. Like if he tried to
Yeah.
be like. That's why they probably also decided with him that wasn't going to be that era of Lestat when he was more like rock star as Lestat. I think that they weren't going to. That wouldn't work probably with Tom Cruise. So I actually like Queen of the Damned more than some people liked it, but also I think it got a lot of bad lash because of the time with Aaliyah as well. They didn't, family didn't even want it to be called Queen of the Damned because she had passed away, and they were very.
Oh yeah. I mean,
They
she did an
that was
incredible job.
yeah, she did. They just didn't. They were very superstitious on it. They didn't like that it would be called that. You know, they were very religious, and they didn't like that aspect of it. But I'm so glad it released because I did enjoy it a lot. But I'm a big vampire buff. Usually, you're not going to find a vampire movie that I didn't see, no matter how old back you go, because I was obsessed. So no lie. So I'm going to be like, who are they going to get to play Aaliyah? That's going to be crazy. Now I'm really curious who's going to play Aaliyah's role. Like, who could take her role for being Queen of the Damned? That's crazy work right there. Like, I have nobody I can even think of right now, to be honest.
Yeah, because of the pandemic, they ended up doing book 1 into 2 seasons.
Yeah.
So the third season is covering the Vampire Lestat, and it's gonna be like he's going on tour. It's gonna be I'm so excited.
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
losing my mind.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check it out because I've been kind of like, I'm a binger. Like I will binge watch a thing. Okay. So like I cannot deal, and that's funny since I'm writing a series and making people wait. I cannot deal with like watching a show and they're like, next year we're going. I'm like, excuse me, what happened? Like I gotta wait a whole year. Like I usually will wait until the show finish, and I like to come in and then do that. But that's also I'm spoiled by K-dramas. And well, some Chinese dramas have like series like this next season or whatever. K-dramas usually generally do not. They have one season, 16 episodes is usually their point, and then it's done. They're like an hour episode, whatever, so that's still a lot. It's like each little mini movies. So I'm really spoiled by that because I like to binge watch. So if it's finished and I'm like, bam, I'm on it. Like I will get my boba tea and and get ready and sit down, and I will just, if I'm off on Saturday and Sunday, I'll just knock that out. I'll just be like seated on time. I get up and go to the bathroom. And
well, as soon as the show's done, I am running to you.
Yes.
Running to tell you.
Yes. I might have to at least start watching it since I haven't watched any of it. Not one
It's
season.
so good. They're doing their own thing. You could tell how much they have a love for the text and how they're really like they don't get me wrong. I kind of like I loved Anne Rice's writing when I was younger, and then I kind of wasn't into it anymore. They actually made me fall in love with her writing stylistically all over again because they captured that.
Yes, well, because she was so involved, and Christopher was so involved. They did the screenplay, they did the script and stuff they together, which I think is really good. I think that the best show renditions or movie or film renditions of books definitely has to have the authors or author involved to some degree, because every time it was better presented. And when they were not involved or could not be involved because they weren't no longer with us, it's an issue. Lord of the Rings, what? I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. I'm a big fantasy fan. That's why I've read fantasy my whole life. My favorite writer is R.A. Salvatore, who writes for the Forgotten Realms. Drizzt Do'Urden is my favorite fantasy character. He is a dark elf, like onyx-skinned dark elf. Because in Forgotten Realms, the dark elves are different than the dark elves in like other fantasy settings. And Drizzt is like my character. I have a whole Drizzt collection. Like all the Drizzt books. I have all the Drizzt figurines. Like I have a whole Drizzt area in my office, and just the fantasy aspects of that. Like, I'm just, man, I think if they ever made a Dritz like movie or a show, I probably would lose my mind. But I'm also like fearful if they ever would. And they actually were doing a live version of something, Forgotten Realms, and they asked Ari Salvatore like they wanted to do Dritz, and he was like, no.
Yeah.
And then the fans was like, thank God. Like, please do not mess Dritz up. Like, is it too many people love the character, you know? And I think that if he's not so involved, it would be a problem. He also probably don't want to take the chance that it would scar any love for the character. Hence why Lord of the Rings happened the way it happened, because J.R. Tolkien wasn't here to have any input. I mean, his kids was here, but money kind of supersedes people interfering in the aspects of that. Though the director did want to put more stuff in, and then they made him not put it in. But I think the worst thing they could have done was take out one of the most prominent characters in Lord of the Rings and act like it was okay. And that's Tom Bombadil. Like, anyone who's read Lord of the Rings know who Tom Bombadil is. And he kind of is portrayed as almost like a god of the world, because the ring does not affect him whatsoever. And he kind of just tosses it away or whatever when he does come in contact with it, which is a big deal. And they took the character out very specifically because he's a god-like character, and they didn't want any god-like aspects in the story, which I think was a mistake, because without that particular character, the rest of the story doesn't even happen. That type of character, as even if like in film we do have to cut things clearly, but that type of character, the hobbits would have never made it to the village where they met the hunter, who was Aragorn, if Tom Bombadil hadn't saved them in the woods before that. Mm-hmm. So the fact that they took that particular character out for such a stupid reason, because we didn't want to mention of any kind of god, now that he directly said that, it was implied, but you guys felt like that might bring some kind of religious undertones. I'm like, well, the dude wrote it in the year he did, so it can't really be helped. But taking that character, I think they could have still left the character, but that's the thing about without the writer being alive and having that influence, like Anne Rice had that influence, and why that show is probably so good is because the writer needs to have their hands on it. You know what I mean? Which is another reason why, even though people don't like Twilight, there's people that love Twilight. Did very well. It's so connected to how the book was because she had so much to do with it. Whether you like it or not, it was you would read the book, even though there's different aspects. Clearly, it was relatable enough where it didn't remove you, where you didn't feel like this is homage to the fans. Like, the fans are going to really love this, even this is in a live action setting. So yeah, one day maybe Caliostro will be made into a series or something. But I'm like, listen, I gotta be on top of that because y'all can't mess up my shit. Like,
yeah, you gotta hold on to the rights. Where was I? Oh yeah. Kiana got Babysitter's Club books. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Margaret, a male character with a big library. Are we talking a dreamin' here? Yo.
Right?
It is a disaster. Okay,
Slender.
Slender.
That's facts.
Kiana said, I haven't seen season 2 yet. I cannot get another season streaming service.
Yeah, I feel you. So many. Is it only on AMC still?
Yeah,
they still got the rights to it.
Yeah, it's on the first season is on Netflix.
Oh, it is on Netflix.
I guess it is some sort of deal. So I don't know when season 2 is going to be available on Netflix, but it is. I watch it through AMC Plus through Amazon because I couldn't help myself. I had to. I was just like, but honestly, I don't really have any streaming services. I just mooch off other people. So this is like the one I actually paid for.
Yeah. Right. I got too many. So I feel we're on that one. I feel that like there's like we're, even though I don't have like Comcast anymore, but now, everything's on the internet. When I only have Comcast for the internet, but then I have like, because obviously I watch Asian cinema, so I have Viki, I have QAnon, I have there's another one that I recently got because I have like 3 different ones for Asian film and shows, because sometimes you can't get some or it takes too long. And then I'll see a little trailer on YouTube teasing me. And then the show is like a mini series that they haven't put together. And then only one of the apps have it. And I'm like, oh, you're just trying to draw me in. You want another $10 from me? Fine. Fine. I'll just do it anyway. So I have those 3, but then I have Amazon Prime and I have Netflix, of course. Duh, I gotta have Netflix. I have one for horror. I think it's called Shudder. Yeah, Shudder. I have that one for horror stuff. I don't know if there's another one. Oh yeah, I do have Paramount Plus, and then I think also, of course, I have was it Disney and Hulu or whatever? Because everyone, this is why this happened. Okay, this is what happened. All right, everyone started trying to get into the bag of K dramas. Like everybody had to have a piece, and then when these companies get a piece, they don't share it. So they have rights. So then they're like, Disney's like, oh no, everyone's watching K-dramas, so we're going to have to make sure we get a few that other people don't have, so that way people will bother with us too. Yeah. So I was like, so I had to have Disney Plus, because I think I had Hulu or something. So then I got the Disney Plus Hulu thing. And then Hulu's all with the sneaky. They're like, you don't have Hulu TV, so I hope you don't want to watch regular television or anything like that, because now you got to get Hulu TV. Ha ha ha. So it's like all the tricks of the trade going on there. So you got like, everybody got like 15 different things. So we didn't really escape the whole cable debacle of the bill. Now it's just spread out with different little apps coming out. It's so ridiculous. But hey, I got to be able to have access to my show. So if AMC was the only one who had it, then I'll have to get AMC. But if Netflix has the first season, I'll do that. But if it's so good, I'm probably going to have to like not wait.
It's so good. I'm no lie. It's riveting. Everyone, and then because I'm so obsessed, I watch everyone react to it on YouTube. And everyone that watches it that knows nothing about it is like,
oh, that's so
their
funny.
minds are blown. They're like totally engrossed and end
up.
Oh,
that's so funny. It's probably very weird if you've read the books and then watch the show. It's probably like
I love it.
Crazy.
I
can't wait. Actually, now I knew about it when they mentioned it, and I was like, I want to watch it, but I want to wait, because then I know I'm going to be like, I'm annoyed. I hate when I gotta wait for another episode. Like, I cannot stand it. And vampire stuff gets canceled all the time.
Yeah.
Like, vampire stuff is known for getting canceled. Like, my favorite vampire show, Forever Night, it's an old classic, but it's like one of the best vampire shows ever. And so I own it on DVD, so I can look at it anytime I want to. And it's very, very good. And then they came out with the Dracula that Jonathan Rhys Meyers played Dracula. It was like one of the best Dracula shows, and it won a season. Unfortunately for the show, it had to happen when the writer's strike went into place, and then they had to rush the end of season 1, and then we never got it back. Yeah. It was like, oh, man, that was so good. Moonlight got canceled. Kendrick the Embrace got canceled. Every time a vampire show came on, I was like, wonder how long this was gonna last. Yeah. So sad. So hopefully this one can stand the test of time.
I hope so, because I'm loving it. I'm just, yeah. But then Kiana says, I wait until the series are finished for the same reason.
Yeah.
Earlier. Yeah.
It get really like, you just want it, and then you're like waiting, and you like, you can't even do anything. So I feel that.
To wrap it up, is there anything that you want to tell our audience that is coming up? Anything about your channel?
Yes. If you want to follow me on my author channel, that's where I'll be doing regular updates. I do 4 videos are my standard for the month. I do live streams now on Tuesdays and on Sundays at 6 p.m. Eastern direct time. My videos tend to consist of, the first Sunday is my PAX Poetry Prompt Sunday, where I give you a prompt and then I write a poem based off the prompt, because I've always been a poet. Actually, I started writing poetry when I was a little girl, and I actually won awards for poetry and got published for that when I was about 19. So that was the first thing I actually got published on. And then on the second Sunday is my writer's blog. That's when I talk about what I'm working on currently and all the other writerly things that I do. And then on the third Sunday is my book review video that I usually what I'm reading currently, and I'll do a book review. I do like little animated videos with the me reading what my review is of it. And I have spoiler and non-spoiler ones depending on the book. If it's a shorter one, it's probably going to be spoiler. If it's a longer book, then I usually try to do non-spoiler. And then on the last Sunday, I do Layer of the Mistress, which is my series where I write a dark romance poem or dark poetry in general. And then I do like a video along with me reading the poetry. So that's my general thing over there on my author channel. So if you follow me there, you'll find out. Also, join my newsletter is the best thing to do to find out more about what's going on with Caliostro, all my releases. Also in my newsletter, it's very quick and kind of like just an interesting type of newsletter. I don't like to put too much in my newsletter, so I usually do an update of what I'm writing. Then I do a creature feature, like what the creature of the month is, and I'll go into like my thoughts on a particular type of creature. Let's say if it's like a swamp thing or something, or a werewolf or vampires, or I may do a creature from the Caliostro world, and then I may mention a writer that I'm currently reading in that, stuff like that. So that's generally what I say in my newsletter, and that comes out on the fourth Monday of each month, so it's only a monthly newsletter. And you can find all that on my website at authordltillery.com and get to see my brand on there. I just revamped the website too. So yeah. And if you haven't read any of my stuff, then look, you got it right here. You can see it. The
You
Rim
have to
Within,
check it out.
fractals, all of those
Okay.
things. Actually, if you look online and look me up, I have some short stories. They were flash like fiction and some short stories that were non-horror. What? Not dark fantasy. What? On what is it? Reedsy? They do like contests like every week or every 2 weeks or something every week. And I entered it like twice and just wrote 2 stories based off some of their prompts. I wrote one that was about supposed to be like friends who meet up again, but I did it where they met up again, but they were lovers throughout time. That one's one of my short stories that wasn't like dark fantasy or horror aspect. And then the other one was more of a revenge type of romance story where the woman she got cheated on, and so she becomes like a wedding planner, and she comes across her ex when he's getting married, and she has a revenge plot. So that one was fun to write. So those 2 stories are actually just like free to read online if you look them up. Usually I share the links in my video descriptions just so people can check out some of my other stuff. But yeah, that's what I have going on. So I hope you check out Caliostro and any of the other things I have. But if you read it, I do ask, please leave me a review on Amazon or Goodreads, because people can find out what you think, and it helps other people want to read it too. So
I definitely will. This is like, I mean, I had a whole day of reading. It was riveting.
yes, I know, and I kudos to you for being such a good reader too. I was like, look at her go, man. Look at her.
All right, everyone. Tomorrow morning, if you're interested, 10:30 a.m. Pacific time, my time. I'm hopping back on my readathon because again, I'm so obsessed with Interview the Vampire. I'm snooping on the shelves of each character, what books they're reading, and they're all defined with prompts that really lend to what's going on, defining moments or I guess characteristics of each character. So tomorrow it'll be Madeline. We're kicking off. And so I hope you see there. I see you there.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
All right, everyone. Have a lovely night. Thank you for being here. This was thank you for your time, by the way.
Of course.
It's late at
I
night.
enjoyed this immensely. Like, you don't even know. Like, I love talking about my books too. Oh, and also Caliostro is actually available in audiobook on Apple Books. They did a thing with the AI that they offered authors, and since I have a plan to release Caliostro's audiobook where I was hiring a male and female narrators to do like both dynamics. That's my plan for that. But they offered me and said, "Oh, well, you could do this." I'm like, okay, well, some people who can't read Caliostro right now because of whatever reason, they can't do the ebook, or they can't, vision impaired and all kinds of things. People listen to audiobooks. So I said, I at least want it to be available for everyone who's able, who wants to read it, but can't read it the ways that it's available. So I was kind of happy with that. And it's actually pretty good, because I have any say about which, like, rather I would just like it and check it, but I checked it once it released, and it was kind of fast too, and it's pretty good. It even
I'm
like
excited.
does a different dynamic, so it's like, I think it's $5 over on Apple Books. I went and got a copy so I could listen to it. I'm like, whoa, it actually isn't bad, and I think the price is pretty low considering, because I know a lot of audiobooks are pretty high because a lot of money goes into producing those. No lie, so you can get it in all forms right now.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yep.
I'm going to listen to it. I'm really excited about it. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you. DL, I appreciate you. Have a nice night, everyone. Bye.
Night.